Hi Tom, why does the sim recommend the bet with the ace of diamonds, 5 of spades, but check the ace of diamonds, 5 of clubs? Can you explain that in 5 minutes or less?
Can I explain it in 5 minutes? What's going on here? And in general, a little note on river blockers. Yes, I can. Can I? Let's find out. Hello, lovely viewers. Welcome back. It's a special bonus edition on the Lucid Poker channel where we're going to answer some of the questions posed in our Discord. Link to the Discords maybe below. Today's question is from Steve Liu 2390. Thank you very much, Steve, for posting a question in Discord which you may not have known we will now be interrogating on your behalf. And that question involves river blockers. Why, with the ace-5, is the 5 of spades, ace-5 with the 5 of spades, betting at a pure frequency in the solver 321%, whilst the other ace-5, whilst being the same hand strength, are not betting at all? Very good question. And let's see if we can help Steve and maybe help some of you viewers at home figure out what's going on. When we're on rivers, one of the nice things about our decision-making process when we're in position is that our hands are clearly betting for a reason. Now, hands are betting for a reason throughout poker, but on rivers, it's the most obvious what's going on. They're betting, basically dividing our hands into two groups. We have the value hands, which are betting to get called by worse or VPIP by worse. And we have our bluff hands, which are betting for fold. There are incentives to bet certain hands. And typically what you'll see in most situations is that we're not betting our very middling hands, which, you know, are too weak to get called by worse and too strong to really try and fold out better. Now let's focus on our nothing here. As you can see, when we have in this particular situation, which is a 10-8-2, 5-king, the big blind's probed, the button is raised, the button is deciding what to do on the river. We can see that low pairs, ace highs, and nothing. Some of these hands are betting sometimes, and some of these hands aren't betting. Our hands don't, unfortunately, line up in perfect equity order, where we only bet the weakest hands, and then we have a random divider where that's the line we stop. Instead, there are certain unique properties about our hands that make some of them better bluffs than others. And this is where blockers come in theory. So Texas Thomas top tip. When you're looking to bluff, think about the properties of your own hand. Think about the properties of your opponent's range. Think about the impact that the cards you hold will have on your opponent's range. Here's the case for Steve. Why is the 5 of spades betting whilst the 5 of diamonds, 5 of clubs aren't? Well, let's put the bet in and let's have a look at our opponent's strategy. As we mentioned, we're bluffing with the ace-5, and so let's focus on the calls that our opponent makes. In particular, when we focus in on our 5x, you can see that realistically, our 5x doesn't make up too much of our opponent's call, other than in one or two spots. Focusing on our 2 pair, we can see that the 5x is available for our opponent to have king 5 and 10 5. And in this situation, you can see that king 5 of spades is there at some frequency and 10 5 of spades. Now, viewers at home, can you spot what's happening here? We see 10 5, 10 5 of hearts, 10 5 of spades. We see king 5, king 5 of clubs, king 5 of spades. So with our 10 5 and king 5, the spades are represented there twice. Now let's look at the board. When we see the king 5, it can't be the king 5 of hearts because the king of hearts is on the board. It can't be the 10 5 of clubs because the 10 of clubs is on the board. And it can't be the 10 of 5 of diamonds or the king 5 of diamonds because the 5 of diamonds on the board. The only two pair that is available to be 10 5 and king 5 in terms of the suited combos is the 10 5 of spades and the king 5 of spades, thereby making the 5 of spades quite a powerful blocker to have in this situation. Hopefully that goes some way to explain why having the 5 of spades is preferable here. And that's why we're bluffing with the ace-5 with the 5 of spades at full pure frequency in GTO, whilst we're not bluffing with the non-5 of spades combos. Texas Tomo's top tip for utilizing river blockers. Firstly, if you're in position on the river and the opponent's check to you, think about where your hand ranks. If it's clear value or if it's in the bluff category, not all of those hands necessarily are made equal. Think about the properties of your hands, the cards that you hold, and think about the impact of those cards that you hold in terms of blocking certain parts of your opponent's range. If, for example, you hold a card that interferes and blocks a lot of your opponent's calling range, thereby they can't have lots of hands that are typically in their calling range, that's a good thing in terms of incentivizing you to bluff more. If you hold a card that blocks a lot of or interferes with a lot of their folding range, that in fact might weight them therefore to have a range that is more likely to call when you bet in that situation, and should be something to consider in terms of probably disincentivizing you to bet more when you're bluffing. However, a note of caution, this is an incredibly unique spot we're in. You can see here that button is raising this turn probe just 1% of the time with the sizing selected. And by the river, we're looking at a minuscule amount of combos. Of course, if we were to take the zoom option away, you can see this is how our hands are represented, and you can see basically almost no hands realistically in this line. Over analyzing the precise reasons of why certain hands are doing something in this exact line would be a mistake in terms of not worth your time in terms of improving your decision-making process. Blockers are really useful on rivers when it comes to determining theoretical play and trying to determine which are the best bluffs to make up an equilibrium strategy. When it comes to your poker in-game decision process, unless you're playing opponents which will have a similar theoretical range that arrives to the rivers, I would encourage guys to not look at these blocker effects as their primary source for decision-making process. So for an in-game practical application, consider your opponent's range ahead of the blockers, consider tendencies, consider opponent types, and only if you're playing an extremely elite opponent,
white magic,
should you then start looking at blockers as being a primary decision-making factor. Blockers can be useful in terms of making a decision if it's close and leaning you one way or the other, but they're typically not something to be looking to do at the low stakes or the micro stakes, in terms of they won't be the difference maker in creating a winning strategy. However, learning the fundamentals and learning the application of the blockers will be useful in certain situations, and in general will help you have a better and more balanced strategy that you can implement when it comes to your flop betting, your turn betting, and your river betting. Thank you very much, Steve, for the question. If you'd like to join a Discord, you're very welcome, and if you'd like to post questions, we will be occasionally ambushing questions in the Discord to make some content about. Feel free to ask some questions and maybe we'll get a video made. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next one.